Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see so many people on a call. It's a warm day today, and I think we're going to have certainly some sparkling conversation over the next hour. So hopefully you also got a cold glass of water next to you. Look, a big welcome to the Clicks and Mortar virtual roundtable. Hopefully an informative and lively session talking through the top 5 priorities for building societies. We're going to do some brief intros and head straight into the discussion. So my name's Iain Mansfield. I'm the COO at the Principality Building Society. I've got some broad responsibilities across the business, but relevant for today would be my responsibilities across tech, change, data architecture, customer services, and I'm also the exec responsible for 2 of the lending portfolios that we have within the building society. And my final responsibility is as exec sponsor of our transformation program. So look, I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to some perspectives from the building society sector. I'm going to hand over next to Pippa, and Pippa will introduce herself as well. You're on mute, Pippa, just at this point. There we go. We've said it once. That's all.
It had to be me, didn't it? Okay, very sorry for that. Yes, good job I'm not in theatre. So yeah, Pippa Buckley-Fisher. I'm a managing consultant with Credera. I'm an architect with a specialism in data and data integration, working with a variety of clients in lots of different sectors. Most recently, quite a lot in the machine learning, data science, AI space. But many years of data experience across the whole life cycle. So I'll hand over to my colleague Rob to introduce himself.
Thank you, Pippa. So I'm Rob. I've been with Credera for 4 years. And my specialism is helping clients adopt and embrace cloud. So my background was traditional data center transformation, and over the years I've upskilled into cloud architecture. And I work with clients from retail, public sector, and finance, helping them to build out their cloud platforms and then scale them for the enterprise. So that's me. Over to you there, Keith.
Thanks very much, Rob. So I'm Keith White. I'm one of the directors here at Credera. I've been with the firm just coming up to a year. Immediately before joining Credera, I was actually head of digital at Leeds Building Society, and I know there's a couple of my ex-colleagues on the call today, so hopefully they won't say too much about my past track record. But a number of years, and he's working across the financial services space in digital transformation, and prior to that, many other years working with a number of consultancies in e-commerce and digital transformation across a number of sectors. So looking forward to the discussion we can have today. I think it's going to be, and if we're all sort of join in, feel free to join, raise your hands and join in when you have opportunity, then that will be really helpful. Carl, is it worth just going through a little bit of the housekeeping? So we're really pleased you've taken the time out over lunchtime to join us today, despite it still being a slightly cooler but still very sunny day today. We do ask that people keep their cameras off if possible, just to help with the session stability. We are recording the session, and a copy of or link to the recording will be sent out as soon as we can after today, so that people will have a chance to reflect back on the conversation. We have muted everybody, so if you have a query or you want to make a contribution, you want to make a comment to something that we've said, even challenges where appropriate, please just raise your hand, and Kyle, as moderator, will bring people in as quickly as there is opportunity to do so. Also, feel free to post things in the chat as we go if you prefer. And we will be working through some of the questions that have been submitted in advance as to frame the conversation that we're going to have today. And so hopefully that will give us something quite lively for the next sort of 40-45 minutes. Just as a brief introduction, just for those of you who haven't come across Credera before, Credera is a leading boutique consultancy in the UK. We recently merged with a US consultancy as well, so we now have a global reach, and we're able to bring together learning and experience and expertise from across a number of markets, very relevant to the sector we're talking about today. And as you'll picked up from Pippa and from Rob, we have a deep expertise across cloud and data and across digital transformation, and particularly in how organizations can build their strategy for sustainability and competitive advantage, deliver that business transformation. And we have a great experience and capability around engineering, around MarTech, and around experience design as well. So we were particularly proud and delighted to sponsor the research that Whitecap did with the Building Society Association. And it was out of some of the findings there that sparked us to think, well, we really want to commit to the building society sector. That's one of the reasons we sponsored that report. But the findings that came out of it gave us some real food for thought, and that's what we've built the white paper that we are going to be launching in the next few days on, and we'll be framing the conversation that we hope to have with you today. And so, the key things that we wanted to think about was how we could enhance brand values of societies, both through the use of data and the way in which they use that data to build customer experiences, measure success, think about the things that really make a difference to the way in which you offer your products and your services to your members and to your future members. How can you therefore work through your technology stack to make sure that it really does support your business goals, and you're able to be more agile, able to be more on the front foot of the things that you need to do as an organization that you want to do? How can you make those conscious choices and give yourselves the flexibility? And how do we therefore use that to enable complementary digital journeys for members and future members? The digital journey needs to be more than just a stick-on or an add-on to what already happens in the branch network or on the voice channel and other channels. How can it really communicate the values that you have as an organization? And through working through cloud, how can that cloud be part of increasing that organizational agility, giving you more opportunities for innovation, and as well as doing things like reducing carbon footprint, enabling you to reduce elements of technical debt, things that Rob, I'm sure, will want to talk about in the conversation shortly. And of course, there's that ever-present problem of or opportunity of embracing innovation and openness. That something which is both from an organizational point of view, as well as whether it's things like open data, open banking, and fintechs, that give you a great opportunity for extending the reach of the products and services you offer. How can we turn that from being a threat into an opportunity, something that builds your organizational success? So these are the 5 themes that we've built into the white paper that we'll be launching very shortly, and you will get an advanced copy of. And obviously we want to frame the conversation today, in and around those things and anything else that you might want to learn or ask about from relative points there. So Carl, I think it's then open to the first question.
Thanks, Keith. And thank you everybody for introducing yourself. Okay, so we have a few pre-submitted questions. As Keith has said, if you wish to ask your own question as we go along or add on to a talking point that we're currently covering, please feel free to post in the chat or raise your hand, and I will cover that off as we go along and just introduce you to the floor. So the first question I think we have is quite an interesting one, and I wonder if Iain, not to put you on the spot, but it might be good for you to give your perspective on this one, given your position and experience. But the first question is, what is the biggest challenge faced when embarking on a significant digital transformation programme? And how can building societies with limited resources avoid the most common pitfalls? I'm sure you probably have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, great question to kick off with. Look, I'll open the conversation up, and I'm sure some of the panel and others will come into this. And I'm going to focus my comments initially on this embarking point, the start part of the journey, because to be clear, transformations always have hugely positive parts, but they also have parts where there are challenges through that journey. But I think the learnings from us were a couple of things. So we kicked off our replatform of both our mortgage and digital savings platforms through 2017 into 2018, and I think the biggest learning for us, and therefore one of the challenges initially, was just making sure we had the capability in-house. Have we got the right skills and capability across the domains that we need to go and build out across what at that point was a sort of 3 to 4 year journey, ensuring that we had time to onboard those skills, indeed onboard some of the vendors we're bringing into our technology stack as well. I think sometimes that there's a desire to get going, and I think sometimes there's a desire to make sure that planning, that enablement, that making sure the skills are in place before you start the journey. So there's a piece around capability and skills. There's a piece about planning. There's a piece about setup. Probably two final things that I would just mention, just in terms of the challenges to make sure that the stakeholder support is there. We spent a huge amount of time managing the stakeholders across our organization in terms of what we wanted the outcomes for our transformation to be, getting their support, getting their buy-in right through to our board. And the final point for me would be, you can't lose sight of why you're doing this as well. So I think sometimes you'll get right into the technology solutions, but we're effectively doing this as a building society to give better customer outcomes. And I think as you continue to drive through these programs and set them up, we need to come back to the why. We're doing this to effectively solve problems existing customers have to make their journey better, or we want to be more appetizing for customers that we don't already have within our franchise. So a couple of things to kick off with. Look, I think Keith's got his hand up as well, and no doubt he's got some war stories as well. So Keith, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yes, I mean, I think just to add it to what you were saying, I think yes, very much need to be thinking about the capabilities that you need to have in house or from your partners as part of being ready for that journey. And I think the other part of that is that, as well as starting to assess where you are and what it is you're trying to achieve, what are those business outcomes, it's also sort of, in a sense, holding back the desire to know everything about what you're going to do before you start doing it. It might sound a bit contradictory, but there is a temptation to think, right, I've now got to define this architecture, and I've got to lay out everything that I'm going to do in that, and I need to understand how every piece is going to work before I start putting it together. And the problem in doing that is that you can spend so long that the business has already started to find different ways of moving on before you've actually implemented anything or even started, in which case the solution you're starting to build won't fit the way the business is. And one of the things about digital is it moves so quickly. We need to find a way of moving our organizations into a test and learn kind of mode, being willing to start the journey of delivering against those business outcomes, achieve something and build on that success, or learn from it where it doesn't work, and being able to roll back. So being able to be product focused on the outcomes you're trying to achieve for your members or your future members, that is, I think, how we can avoid the most obvious pitfalls, and one of the most obvious ones that I've experienced, and not just in building societies but in a number of other organizations, is by the time we get started, the business has moved on, so what we think we're going to do is no longer relevant. I think, Ian, you've just raised your hand again.
Yeah, I was just going to build on that point, Keith, and I'm sure we can open up whether there's any other hands around the audience. But I think avoid the monolithic. I'm going to spend X number of months thinking, X number of months designing, X number of months building, and in 18 months' time you'll have this perfect thing. Because as you said, Keith, the movement of technology at the moment and customer expectations is so quick. Do a bit, think a bit, do a bit, build a bit, think a bit, do a bit, build a bit. I think absolutely, but that is a capability in itself, Keith, as well, to be able to do that. And you need to have the capability either internally or to be supported appropriately to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Lovely. Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, I was just noticing Rob in particular was nodding away furiously, and I didn't know that Rob wanted to add anything to what Ian and I just said.
Doesn't seem. Oh,
My Is it working? Sorry, my mute
Yeah.
had gone into a complete frenzy of switching itself off and on. Yeah, I guess what I was nodding away quite furiously at is the piece around having, I guess, essentially roadmaps of where you're trying to go, and then as architecture, building those almost corresponding architecture roadmaps. Because I think a key part, at least in my experience, is working with the business to identify what are the technology enablers that the business need to be able to realize their vision in terms of a product that they want to provide out to the business, and what are the right wraparounds needed. And that really leans into trying to build what the business need at a particular point in time, rather than trying to build, you know, all singing, all dancing platform that perhaps takes many years to build.
Yeah. But like, it's mad being able to go that big. Like,
Sorry, I think that was just somebody joining in late.
I thought someone was vigorously agreeing.
Carry on.
No, that was the point that I was trying to raise there.
Lovely. All right. Thank you. Sorry about the disruption there. Okay, if there are no hands raised or comments from the floor, I will move on to the next question. Let's there we go. So maybe this is one for you more, Pippa, given your experience, but the question is, what should building societies focus on to become more data driven? What are the main challenges and opportunities in this space?
Yes, well, actually, it was just really resonating with me in terms of, you know, a good segue really into here. With data transformation programs are notorious for being quite lengthy and having doubtful successes. It's, you know, quite costly as well, and quite hard to keep people focused on the end point. And I think to a large extent that is because the approach that's taken towards them, which is, you know, all that big upfront thinking and modeling and architecture, and it's the same story. So by the time you get to actually deliver anything, we saw this very much in the kind of big data, you know, when it all came, was very much the thing that, you know, there were very large programs of work of organizations putting all their data into these lakes, and then, you know, by the time they actually managed to surface anything meaningful, if they did, they found that the business needs had moved on, or maybe they hadn't really even appreciated the business needs as they should. So I think it's the kind of the same, it's the same philosophy is to start small, have a strategy that is aligned with your goals as an organization. So one that is suitable for what you want to achieve and those business outcomes you need to support. But don't spend like ages on doing that. You know, it's better to have something actionable than something that is, you know, just sort of sits there and people refer to it but doesn't really mean anything. And a small set of really meaningful data principles, again, that are actionable, that help guide people on their journey in data. It starts really with an attitude change as much as anything else. So that data, we all say, you know, really, data's our asset, it's like oil, we need to treat it as such, but it's rarely achieved in actual fact. So I think foundationally, building societies, you know, the good quality and secure foundations in data are so important, because without those, all this absolutely wonderful stuff you can do in data science, in analytics, in machine learning, it's not on solid ground. It needs to have those solid data foundations. So it's the stuff that we all know, but we don't always implement. So my advice is think about your basics. Are your foundations there? Are they solid? Do you have good data quality? You know, do you have like governance processes that, you know, ensure that things happen as they ought to, but aren't restrictive? You know, guidelines to help people do data processing from end to end, but these help guide and shape rather than prescribe. And if you can get that good solid foundation, then you have a really good launch pad to start, you know, using data to support, you know, decisions. Keith, I notice you've popped your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to follow a little bit of what you were saying there, Pippa. Actually, I mean, one of the things and I suspect it's going to come out as a bit of a theme of today, is also, you know, the ways in which now, using more modern sort of data architectures, we're able to move the ownership of data back into the business and move it away from being a technology-led initiative, you know, and therefore we're able to start thinking about the buzz phrase being democratizing the data, but essentially driving those data initiatives that you were talking about from the business and the outcome point of view, so that we're not having to spend ages building those data lakes. We're not even having to spend a long time doing that. We're thinking about what are we using data for, where does it, and because of those strong foundations you've mentioned, we start to understand where the data lives, how it's going to be governed, how it's going to be kept clean, how it's going to be kept as good quality and kept secure, and therefore we can build, you know, business stream technologies or business stream initiatives that enable more rapid values that come out of that data. And I think that's one of the things that you know, really helps, you know, sort of build that incremental momentum, which most of these digital issues really need.
I think Iain wants to come in on that as well.
I was just going to add just a broader point. So we've just, as a business, restructured our IT and change teams, coming through the back of a transformation into sort of a value stream approach. We've collated all of our architecture domain capability into one function. It was dissipated across the organization. So business architects in one part, IT and enterprise architects, solution architects, enterprise data architects in our data team. We're creating I guess an enterprise architecture capability, and we have. And I guess what we've done is put that right next to our strategy team. I was going to say literally, but that's probably not right in today's climate. But that's where we would, if we were in the office, put them right next to our strategy team. So the conversation is first around what does the strategic outcome for the organisation look like, and then get the architects right at the forefront of those conversations to ensure that the roadmaps enable that strategy delivery. And if that's one of the key changes we want to make. So, you know, change isn't going down the pipe into, you know, effectively build and delivery before we've got that absolute alignment between the outcomes and the strategic outcomes we want. And I think it then goes across anything you want to do, but making sure that the people thinking about an enterprise are absolutely locked in to the strategy of the organization. And the conversation should be probably, as we call it in our business, more left-hand side of a diagram. So going up towards strategy first before going into what would be our value streams in the case of a Principality, for that then to be the solution to be thought through and to be delivered and tested and released into live and embedded.
Thanks, Iain. Don't see any additional hands up or questions from the floor, so I'll move us on. There's a related question which I think might be just worth building on, just your kind of point there, Iain, and probably worth giving back to you to start. But the question is, how do you see the savings market being disrupted in the next 2 to 3 years? And how can building societies respond to new entrants who are potentially more technology agile?
Yeah, thanks, Carl. So, God, I'm sure many people on the phone will have a view on this one. So, I mean, look, digital adoption will be the message over the last 18 months. I think, you know, as we've been through these very difficult times, we're seeing a massive skew towards people wanting to manage, you know, a savings capability through digital. In by the way, complementing our branch-based capability. But I think the next 2 to 3 years we'll start to see some broader integration of some of the open banking capabilities out there. As a building society, what problem do we want to solve for? We want to help people save. That's what we're here for. How can we do that with open banking? I think we can start to think about whether we can bring other information from other savings account into one place, whether we can start to think about how we build goals, and how can we think more broadly about personal financial management. So I think there will be a move towards, rather than just a simple standalone savings account, to the ability to really help members and customers really enhance their savings habits. And I think technology around open banking will certainly help that. I think the second thing, and I think Pippa touched on this, data capabilities. As people go through a digital journey, the ability to pull a lot more data from them at that particular point will be hugely interesting. And I think that gives the opportunity, if you so desired and you want the infrastructure to do it, to personalize some of the information we provide customers. So I think there's a point about open banking and goals and bringing information into one place to help plan and save better. I think there, as you go through a digital journey, the ability to extract more information and be able to package that to then start to personalize and hopefully increase some conversion rates. I can see Keith's got his hand up, so I'm going to pass over to Keith as well.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, just to build on that, I think you've got, there are a few things that we started to see, that different, platforms, aggregators and so forth, starting to encroach into the savings market in different ways. And before the pandemic, we were starting to see, that interest in, for lots of people wanting sort of more standard, savings products, starting the journey online, starting the journey in the digital realm. And some might then move to branch, some might move to phone, some might stay in digital, and some might want to do both. And I think, as Ian said, one of the things that we're going to see a lot more is that, already we've seen surveys, there's one by YouGov not that long ago, showing that something like 2/3 of people saying that they are going to use the digital channel more than they were doing before the pandemic, and that usage is going to stay. And financial services was one of the higher sectors that was the case. So the question is going to be, how do we, not just how do building societies compete in that space, but how do they use that channel as a complementary one to the high quality services already being offered through the other channels? And it comes back to, I think, really strong experience design is going to be a critical component in how do you, not just what technology do you put in place, not necessarily even how do you utilize open banking. Do you utilize open banking, for example, to connect to platforms so that platforms become a channel to market? That's one of the things that you can do. You can also use open banking as a means of enhancing the service you provide, but really understanding the future members, not just the existing membership, is probably going to be critical. Starting to think about the segments that you're going to be attracting in the future. Who are the people that are going to be the savers of the future, and what kind of experience do they want? What needs are they trying to fulfill, and how can you do that in a way that truly represents your brand values? Those I think are going to be the critical things. We're actually really establishing that clicks and mortar kind of presence, because we sort of titled this Roundtable Clicks and Mortar because we really do see that actually digital needs to be part of the fabric that complements what is already done in the branch network, what is already done in the voice channels, and provides an additional capability. And for some, it will be the main capability in the way in which they work with you. But it's actually all part of establishing, or reinforcing the brand values of the building society, and so that people really get what you are about and what you can offer for them. Sorry, Pippa, I can see that you got a hand up. You wanted to come in on that, and then perhaps we'll pass back to Ian.
Yeah, just related to that, really. At the other end of the spectrum as well, there's a big opportunity. I was really interested to read in the report that was commissioned about being known for social stance and ethos, and how that would be important to maybe a younger demographic. And I think also when we're looking at analytics and determinations and maybe risk assessments and all the things we do in that analytics space, being able to explain that explainable AI, having that assurance that it's free from bias, that you have reproducible and traceable decisioning, really plays well against that. You will be known for being responsible in that space. I think younger people are really from the ones I know, they're really keen on that. It's really important to them. That and also carbon footprint are some key drivers in that space. So, being in the cloud, having that reduction in all those resources that's available from that, and also having this responsible AI at the other end rather than at the sort of interface and the interaction end, I think it's equally important.
Ian, over to you, I guess.
Sorry, Ian. Sorry, I went on mute because my dog barked. Over to you.
No, that's fine. A couple of things just to add to both comments. That's about choice. It's all about choice to me. It's not about being digital only. It's about absolutely servicing our members in the best way possible. And clearly, there's a move towards digital, so making sure that capability is as good as the historic branch experience. I just think when the question also, that goes into a piece to be about partnership as well into the future. So how do we know what good looks like? I think from a building society perspective, when there's a lot going on in the digital space. So I think partnerships really key. Learning from an externalizing your desires in an organization and think about what top class partnerships you could manage. I don't think this is all about always building it out as a building society. Probably goes to the point sometimes around not all building societies will have the pockets to be able to just go and build this themselves. So there's partnerships available. I think one of the interesting things that we've just done in this space is, we've aligned quite closely to FinTech Wales, which is an association of South Wales and Wales promoting, FinTech, and we've got involved in that, and that's probably given us some good learnings that we can then take back into our organization in terms of what new entrants might be doing in the sector as well. So we can bring that back into our organization and think about it, or indeed even partner with such people as well.
Thanks, Ian. Okay, I will move us on to the next question. We've got time for a few more. So Rob, I will come to you first on this. It's very much in your wheelhouse, but how can an organization that has never used cloud or has only dabbled in the space commence an adoption journey?
Thanks, Carl. So very similar to the other topics that we've discussed, I think it's about starting small and letting the use grow somewhat organically. And the reason that I say somewhat is I think you do need to build an element of a harness. So build the guardrails that you want the organization to work within, set those security policies that you want the organization to play in. And grow out from there. So there's many frameworks available from the big cloud providers about building these landing zones and things like that with sample code already readily available. But to the point I was saying earlier on, it's really important you have a roadmap for how you want to build out that platform alongside the business benefits that are being derived from the wider transformation. That's where I've seen cloud adoption be really successful, because you can really play back the benefit that you're bringing into the business. And just to Ian's point there about there was two things, partnering and skill sets. So if you are going to be looking towards a partner to help you with this, I think a key part of it is how do you embed members of your organization if you are looking to eventually insource the cloud management service? How do you embed members of your technical teams into that delivery so that they can, as well as having a career development in terms of skills and maybe certifications, but also do on-the-job learning? Because where I think it becomes very difficult is where you bring a partner in, they build something, and then there's a really lengthy transition process. So embedding your people right from the beginning so they pick up the skills, they understand how the platform is built over a period of time. So that would be my start for 10. If anyone's got any questions or builds on that.
Oh, Keith.
Well, just one question, I think, really back to Rob, because obviously we've had some conversations recently with a couple of building societies around, sort of migration to cloud, building that cloud operating model. I think it was what we would call it, but that way of working, that way of managing cloud. What would you say is the sort of key differences between managing an on-premise estate, an on-premises estate, versus then starting to manage that in the cloud. And as you sort of progress from one to the other, are there areas of capability which you would see as being the priority for establishing in-house first, to enable that transition and that change to be sustained?
Oh, there's a lot in that question. So
that's why
let's break a few of those bits down. So I think if we start with what are the main parts that I think an organization probably wants to focus on in terms of that in-house capability, I probably look towards the governance space first. So looking at things like how you manage the finances. So do you actually understand at the end of every month when the provider gives you a lovely bill, do you understand where all that cost is going? And can you associate that to benefit in some way, shape or form? It's used for delivering a service either internally or externally to the organization. I think security is a major part in that as well. No one probably understands the security stance of the organization better than the organization itself. And then working with the provider or partner to implement the technical facets of those policies. And then, like I said before, having some of the boots on the ground. So I'm not saying go and recruit a big in-house team tomorrow, but make sure that you've got kind of key people embedded into the delivery so that they, like I say, learn some of the new skills, but also are invested and part of building out the cloud application or the cloud landing zone, because that's really going to help with knowledge transfer later. I guess moving on from that, there was a bit around what's the difference between managing on-premise and managing in the cloud. I think a key part to it is probably starting with looking at the shared responsibility model. So all the cloud providers will have a responsibility model that effectively breaks down what are you responsible for and what's the cloud provider responsible for. And that changes depending upon the different services that you buy, whether it's pure infrastructure or whether it's platform or whether it's full-on software as a service. It's really important to understand those handoffs, I think, because that's really going to drive a lot of what will be effectively your service operating model and the capabilities that you need as an organization. You can then drive down on those things that you're responsible for, kind of the in-source, outsource strategy and how you want to embed that into the organization. And then there's, I would say, another big change is the finance piece. A lot of folk who have adopted cloud find the shift from, let's say, traditional CapEx of I need X hundred of thousands, millions every couple of years to invest in hardware to getting a bill once a month that explains what you've used. And that really comes back into that governance piece of understanding, well, where is the money going? Are you using the resources in the most effective way? Kind of building out that FinOps capability. Did I cover all the parts of your question there, Keith? It was quite a long one, so.
Yeah, no, I think that was very good. I think what you described there is that being able to relate both the if you like the subscription cost and the capability build to the benefits that you're gaining as an organization and how all of those things change incrementally. And I would say actually I would say that the leveraged benefit will incrementally improve, as you build that capability in house, but equally as you extend the reach of the cloud capability. So your level of organizational agility or level of, I don't know, green benefits, carbon benefits and so on, is all going to increase. But it's really important to get that base capability to understand how you're managing that in place in order to leverage that benefit. Sorry, Ian, you wanted to come in there.
Yeah, I just only briefly, for us, we've got a cloud first strategy. So anything that comes up for renewal, our assumption would be that would go into the cloud. clearly there's some of our legacy platforms that will be more difficult and timely to get us into that space. But I think your point on the cost model, the capex to opex point, not lost on us as an organisation as you go from one to another. I think the other point is this can become just a technology conversation within the technology function, and I think you've got to talk. What we're trying to do is talk to our end users, potentially our value stream product owners, around the benefit of cloud and what it can give you: faster releases, more agility in the delivery of software out to members as well. So as soon as you can start talking to people about those benefits as well as maybe to the CFO about the implications of an on-demand pull for some cloud cost, I think it starts to help that adoption case across the organization. It's probably just one thing from our perspective that I would add into the mix.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can't underestimate kind of the I want to say the configurability of cloud and what that gives you in terms of the agility to be able to spin things up rapidly, do your proof of concept or your spike, and if it's not successful, you can throw it away. It's not like you've invested hundreds of thousands into tin, for want of a better term. So yeah, 100% agree.
Thanks all. I think we've just about got space for 2 more questions. I don't think there's anything from the floor I've seen, so I'll keep going with the pre-submitted. There will be an opportunity to pick up with us after anyway, should there be any questions. But yeah, if we keep these fairly prompt, I think we can get through the whole list here. So maybe one for you to start with, Keith. The question is, how are you planning to create business architecture aligned to corporate strategy? And subsequently, how are you planning in different programs based on business benefits? So I guess that's probably our view on how to approach that rather than what we're doing necessarily.
This is an excellent and interesting question. I think as we've touched on at the beginning, the key thing I think is to have enough of an understanding of the outcomes that as an organization you're trying to achieve, to have an understanding of where you are today in relation to those outcomes, and then we can start to build the kind of how we fill the gap. What we wouldn't advocate is spending a long time building a complete organizational business architecture, because as we said at the beginning, one of the challenges is that you can spend so long doing that actually by the time that you've completed and you're ready to do something, the organization has already started to move away because we've not delivered for them in certain areas, and you end up finding that you're unpicking tactical projects that were done through departmental budgets, because you've done this centralized piece of work. So what we want to do is to have enough of an understanding that we can then start to build a view. I would say what we might term as against the reference model. We would advocate using certain disciplines from things like TOGAF or others to build capability understandings, to do capability assessments, but then starting to build reusability on a use case by use case. So what are we trying to achieve? Let's do something that enables us to achieve that outcome, and let's do it in smaller steps incrementally, so that actually, if we start to find things are causing us difficulties or aren't working, we as Rob just said in relation to cloud, we've invested less, we've got less to roll back, but we also learned something, and we can build on it, and we can build the organizational understanding, and we can be more agile. We can flex to where the business is then going to go. So it's a combination of having enough of an understanding, enough of a picture to begin, that we then, sake of a simple analogy, we're then starting to do a sort of colouring in by numbers in kind of approach. We're filling in as we go some of the areas. So we might know we need something to enable identification management for customers. Right, great. Let's understand what that is and how it can be reused, and then build on it, for the next, for future activities. So there's a combination there, but what we don't want to do is to build big programs which actually mean that we're organisational, we're sort of waterfall heavy in the way in which we're starting to deliver. Now, Pippa, I'm sure you've got quite a lot to add into this coming from an architecture point of view, so I'll hand over to you.
Well, I was just really going to reinforce the point. It goes back to Ian's point about capabilities, really. Big advocate of capability-based planning for digital transformations. It allows you to take quite a quick, wide, look across the organisation. Business capabilities tend to be less volatile, and if you focus on those where they're supporting key business outcomes, it allows you to identify those core capabilities. So for my money, that aspect of business architecture is incredibly useful in digital transformation, data transformation programs. Maybe some of the other stuff less so because of the long lead time, as you've already clearly stated.
Thanks both. Okay, we're very nearly at time. I believe there's a late joiner. I'll just let them into the session. But the final question then of the day is, assuming limited resources, where would you opt to prioritise effort based on the top 5? And I assume this is harking back to our 5 proposed tech priorities. Keith, I'll probably pose this one to you first, but I guess the answer ultimately is it's dependent on your situation and where you're at.
Yeah, you summarised it well. I think where I would start is let's go back to what we were, in a sense, going back to what we talked about at the beginning. Let's understand where we are in terms of our capabilities as an organisation. What is it therefore that we want to add? What do we need to add? But how do we know what we need to add? Well, we need to understand the outcomes that we're trying to get to. And if we can understand the outcomes we're trying to get to, and we can put them in some kind of priority order, medium term, short term, medium term, longer term, then we can start to understand what capabilities we need to build. And out of that, we can then start to take, if you like, a thin slice approach against the areas of data, cloud, experience design, and the other kind of operational management and organizational management, service management kind of capabilities we need in the organization, and we can build our roadmap from there. So in that sense, that's how I would prioritize. But exactly where we prioritize, well, probably in the capabilities around being able to manage, test and learn, to manage digital transformation as a product orientated thing from a business viewpoint rather than as a technology project. I'm more than happy for my colleagues on the panel to jump in and add or critique as necessary.
Keith, happy just to give a couple of words from me. So I think this is a difficult one to answer with a broad audience, right? But I think I think we've got to be really conscious of what, from a building society perspective, what our purpose is. Our purpose is to help people save and help people, buy homes, I guess, or get on a home ownership journey. Clearly, there's been in the last 18 months, and if not indeed the last 3 to 4 years before then, a movement towards digital. So providing customers with choice on the journey to build the savings habit would be a really important one for me. So I think I'd probably plump for sort of the digital capability to give customers choice, whether that's branch or digital on the journey. And I think some of the technology advancements will really help the building society sector to differentiate, and I think that's probably quite important for the sector over the next couple of years.
Thanks both. Very prompt answers. I will cheekily squeeze in one last question that we've had in from Charles Burrows whilst we're talking, and then we'll draw the session to a close. So the question is, can you describe 1 or 2 of the best ways to build in voice of the customer or customer insight to influence the shaping of building society tech and digital experience or digital experience roadmaps? Keith, is your hand up to answer that question first? Is that?
Yes, please. I mean, there's a question very dear to my heart. So I think really, it's vitally important that we build in voice of the customer in that way. Two ways we can do that. One is through the way in which we do user experience research as a key part of our experience design. So we can be doing that through panels. We can be doing that through ways in which we pull in other data about our customers. So if we've got a good customer insight function that is tracking what members are thinking about, are we using that to get more feedback? So we build that picture of what our customers are trying to do, what their needs, desires are, a bit like Iain was just talking about there. And the other way we can do it is to start to track. One of the things I did at Leeds was we implemented a piece of technology which helped us to track what customers were doing on the website, where they were encountering problems, and it did it anonymously, so there was no PII implications in that, but it enabled us to spot where customers were getting lost in those journeys, where they were starting to loop, where they were failing to do what they were doing, what's the bounce rate, so where people coming onto the website disappearing again because they couldn't find what they needed. And it enabled us to build some really simple changes into the customer journeys very quickly, which shot up the conversion rate. And it was, so there are a combination of ways in which we can do that, and it's something that one of the capabilities I've had been building Credera UK here right now. That's what we really want to be helping our customers do, is understand that voice of the customer, that experience of the customer, and build it into the roadmaps going forward.
Rob, I think you want to add?
Yeah, I was just going to build on Keith's point around. I think there's the say the soft skill side of it in terms of customer engagement and user research, and then there's the technical aspects of doing things like application performance monitoring and conversion goal monitoring. And I'll say don't underestimate the amount of intelligence that you can get from that, as Keith said, in terms of being able to understand where are your users dropping out, why are they dropping out. And there's more and more software coming to the market which will give you ratings on things like accessibility, which is becoming more and more important. So it was just a build to say that don't underestimate the off-the-shelf and ready tools that you can embed into your applications to give you a better view on kind of that user experience to help you build that voice of the customer.
Thanks all. We are just about at time, so I'd advise we draw this to a close. Keith, if I hand over to you, and then Iain, just parting thoughts, please.
I think my thought from me is thank you all very much for giving up your lunchtime to come and be with us today. I hope it was a useful and an informative conversation, and I would be delighted to pick up with any of you subsequently. My email address is there on the screen. Please do just get in touch. We'd love to pick up with you and just talk through your feedback on the session, your thoughts on what we've been talking about, your thoughts on our white paper when you get the advance copy of that, and how it resonates with the challenges that you're facing. It'd be terrific to talk further and learn more about what you're doing and share with you what we are doing with our customers and how we might be able to help.
Yeah, I guess final thoughts just from me. Great to have a panel discussion on topics that right at the forefront of, I think, the vast majority of building societies in terms of transforming their digital capability, their data capability, and cloud capability. They're certainly topics right at the top of the Principality building societies list. So yeah, useful conversation, and yeah, appreciate everyone giving some of their lunch hour up to work through.
Lovely. Thank you all. Thanks everybody for attending. As Keith has kind of mentioned, we'll follow up with a recording and the white paper shortly, but really appreciate you giving up some of your time to have this chat with us. Have a great day and speak soon.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everybody.
Bye bye.